Shocking courtroom revelation. Willow acquitted as Jason's son Danny confesses to shooting Drew. Port Charles Courthouse erupts in chaos when unexpected truth emerges during Willow's trial. The Port Charles Courthouse was rocked by an unexpected bombshell this week as Willow Tate's attempted murder trial took a dramatic and shocking turn. What began as another tense day of testimony ended with a stunning courtroom confession that left every person in attendance stunned and gasping for breath. As the jury deliberated over evidence and witness testimonies, nobody could have predicted the earth-shattering truth that was about to emerge, a revelation that would change everything for Willow, Drew, Jason, and most importantly, for Danny Morgan. The trial's bleak outlook for Willow. The courtroom tensions had been running high throughout Willow's trial, and her prospects seemed increasingly grim as each day passed. Despite her steadfast claims of innocence, the prosecution had built what appeared to be a compelling case against her. Detective Harrison Chase, Willow's dedicated advocate, had worked tirelessly behind the scenes attempting to uncover exonerating evidence that could save her from conviction. The challenge was daunting. Chase needed concrete proof, and so far, the evidence had been frustratingly elusive. "I've looked everywhere," Chase had confided in a private moment, his frustration evident. Camera footage, witness statements, forensic reports, nothing is pointing us in a direction that helps Willow. The evidence against her is too strong, and without something substantial to counter it, I'm not sure how much more I can do. The camera footage placing Willow near Drew's location on the night of the shooting had been particularly damaging to her defense. Witness testimonies had painted a picture of a woman desperate enough to take drastic action. The prosecution argued that Willow had motive, opportunity, and the means. From their perspective, the case was straightforward. Willow's new attorney, working within the system's constraints, struggled to mount a viable defense when each crucial piece of evidence seemed to point back to his client. Willow herself had grown increasingly anxious as the trial progressed, sitting in the courtroom day after day, watching jurors' faces, hoping for some sign of reasonable doubt. She felt the weight of hopelessness settling upon her shoulders. She had been rendered nearly defenseless by the prosecution's methodical presentation of evidence. Michael, her ex-husband and father of her children, was forced to testify. His reluctant but damaging testimony suggested that Willow had motive: her deteriorating marriage to Drew and her desire to protect her children. Chase's futile attempts to find the truth. Throughout the trial, Harrison Chase remained determined to find something, anything that could help Willow's case. As a police detective and someone who believed deeply in the truth, Chase refused to accept that the evidence against Willow was conclusive. His by-the-book nature drove him to pursue every angle, every lead, no matter how tenuous. "There's always something that people miss," Chase had told his legal team. "Someone sees something they don't report. Evidence gets overlooked. We need to find it before it's too late." Yet the clock was ticking, and with each passing day of testimony, Chase's prospects dimmed. The prosecution seemed unstoppable, methodically presenting their case with damaging witnesses. Chase attended every session, listening intently, waiting for that one inconsistency, that one crucial piece of information that could turn the tide in Willow's favor. But the breakthrough he so desperately sought continued to elude him. A shocking courtroom confession changes everything. The atmosphere in the courtroom during the final day of testimony was unbearably tense. Jurors were preparing to deliberate, closing arguments had been made, and observers understood that Willow's fate was about to be placed in the hands of 12 strangers. It was at this moment, when everyone believed the trial's outcome was sealed, that the courtroom doors burst open and a young man walked in with determination etched across his face. Danny Morgan, the 17-year-old son of legendary mobster Jason Morgan, strode directly toward the judge and asked to address the court. Gasps echoed through the gallery as people recognized the teenager. His mother, Sam, and his grandmother, Alexis, looked startled by his sudden appearance. Jason himself, sitting in the back of the courtroom, went rigid with shock. "Your Honor," Danny began, his voice steady despite his obvious youth and nervousness, I need to tell the truth. It's been eating me alive. And Willow Tate is innocent. I'm the one who shot Drew Kane." The entire courtroom erupted. People stood from their seats. The judge called for order. Several observers had to be escorted from the gallery as they reacted emotionally to this stunning revelation. "I did it," Danny continued, "because I was angry at the way Drew treated my sister Scout. He was cold to her, distant, and he was using her as a pawn in his schemes. Scout is just a little kid, and he didn't care about her well-being. He only cared about himself. That night, when I confronted him about it, things escalated. We argued, and I lost control. I took the gun, and I shot him." The aftermath: Willow's acquittal and Jason's heartbreak. The revelation sent shockwaves through Port Charles. The jury, upon hearing this confession, did not need to deliberate any further. Within hours, Willow Tate was officially declared not guilty. The charges were dropped, and she was released, finally free from the nightmare of incarceration and prosecution. People who had watched her suffer through months of uncertainty could finally see relief wash over her face. However, the moment of triumph was tempered by the crushing reality of what had just occurred. Jason Morgan sat in stunned silence, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. His son, his beloved boy, had just confessed to a violent crime in open court. Love for his child and righteous anger at what Danny had done warred within him. "Danny, why?" Jason asked his son after the proceedings ended, his voice barely above a whisper. The anguish in his words was palpable, the pain of a father who loved his son but couldn't condone his actions. "You had so much going for you. Why would you throw your life away?" Danny looked back at his father, tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. But Scout, she was being hurt, and no one was doing anything about it. I had to do something." Jason pulled his son into an embrace, but it was an embrace filled with resignation and sorrow. Despite his anger, despite his disappointment, Jason knew that he had to stand by his son. The question now was not how to abandon Danny, but how to protect him, how to navigate the legal system to minimize the damage to his son's future. Willow's mission: sparing Danny from punishment. As Willow walked free from the courthouse, her first instinct was not to celebrate her exoneration, but to think of Danny. The young man had sacrificed his own freedom to prove her innocence. Despite everything she had endured, despite her suffering, Willow understood the gravity of what Danny had done for her, and she was determined to repay that sacrifice. "We have to help Danny," Willow told Drew immediately after her acquittal. "He saved me. He confessed to protect me, and now he's facing serious charges. I need you to help me find a way to reduce his sentence, to help him avoid the worst possible outcome." Drew, who had been the victim in this entire ordeal, was now being asked to show mercy. It was a turning point for him, a moment where he could choose revenge and allow the full force of the law to destroy a teenager, or he could choose compassion and help mitigate the damage. Willow was counting on him to choose the latter. "Please, Drew," she continued, "Danny did what he thought was right, even if it was misguided. He was trying to protect a child. Surely you can understand that. I'm asking you, as a victim, to consider dropping any claims for maximum punishment. I'm asking you to help us find a way forward that doesn't destroy a boy's entire life." The conversation was emotionally charged, with Willow's desperation mixed with gratitude and an appeal to whatever humanity remained in Drew. The outcome of her plea would determine not only Danny's fate, but also the future relationships between all the families involved in this dark chapter of Port Charles history. Conclusion: innocence restored, new challenges emerge. The trial of Willow Tate ended not with the jury's verdict, but with a teenager's courageous confession. While Willow's name had been cleared, and she could finally return to her children, Wiley and Amelia, with her reputation restored, the victory came at an enormous cost. Jason Morgan faced the anguish of having his son incarcerated for attempted murder. Chase, who had worked so hard to find evidence, ultimately didn't need to. The truth emerged from an unexpected source. Yet this resolution also revealed something profound about the characters involved. Danny's willingness to sacrifice himself, Willow's determination to repay that sacrifice by helping to protect him, and Jason's struggle to balance love for his son with the gravity of his actions. These human elements gave weight to what could have been a simple courtroom drama. In Port Charles, as in life, the truth rarely emerges cleanly, and justice is often more complicated than the law alone can provide. As the city processed this shocking turn of events, one thing was clear: the Morgan, Corinthos, and Quartermain families would be forever changed by what had happened in that courtroom. The only remaining question was whether compassion and family bonds would be strong enough to guide them all through the difficult days ahead. Next, we will learn about the terrifying captivity of Anna Devane on Spoon Island and the daring escape plan she may be quietly putting into motion behind her captor's back. Anna Devane, one of Port Charles' sharpest minds and most seasoned agents, currently finds herself in one of the most helpless situations of her life. Locked away on Spoon Island, cut off from everyone who cares about her, she's become a hostage in Jen Sidwell's twisted game. The eerie silence of the estate, the constant sense of being watched, and the unknown motives behind her abduction all weigh on her psyche. Anna doesn't know exactly who's pulling the strings or what the endgame is, and that uncertainty might be the most dangerous element of all. But if there's one thing fans know, it's that Anna is not someone who stays a victim for long. In this bizarre arrangement, Pascal has been assigned as Anna's caretaker, a role that blurs the line between guard, nurse, and observer. He brings her food, checks on her condition, and speaks to her with a calm, almost gentle tone that feels completely at odds with the circumstances. Pascal is always surprisingly cheerful when he appears, as if he's visiting a guest instead of monitoring a prisoner. That contrast unnerves Anna, but it also gives her something crucial: information. She's watching him, studying his habits, cataloging every gesture and every word. The more she observes, the more she realizes that Pascal may be the weak link in Sidwell's carefully constructed cage. Pascal doesn't seem to view Anna as a hardened threat. Instead, he looks at her almost like a fascinating subject in a psychological experiment. He is intrigued by how her mind works, how she processes fear, and how she adapts. He asks leading questions, seems curious about her reactions, and behaves as if he's taking mental notes. That curiosity is dangerous for him because it forces him to let his guard down. Rather than treating Anna like a seasoned spy capable of outsmarting him at any moment, he treats her like an interesting puzzle. For Anna, that miscalculation could become a powerful weapon. From the beginning, Anna has made a conscious choice to appear compliant. She listens when Pascal gives instructions, she cooperates when he orders her to turn around, and she accepts the routines forced upon her without open resistance. On the surface, it looks like she's given up, but beneath that calm exterior, her mind is racing. Every act of obedience is part of a calculated strategy. By playing the part of the good prisoner, Anna slowly convinces Pascal that she has resigned herself to her fate. The more predictable she seems, the safer he feels. And the safer he feels, the more careless he will eventually become. Over time, this pattern of obedience creates a rhythm, almost like a script both of them know by heart. Pascal enters the room. He orders her to turn her back. He sets down the tray or checks the restraints. He talks, she listens. There are no surprises. And that is exactly what Anna wants him to believe. The repetition lulls him into a false sense of control. He thinks he knows how she will behave every time he walks through that door. He thinks she is broken, or at least tamed. But Anna has no intention of remaining predictable forever. One of the most critical details in this twisted routine is Pascal's insistence that Anna turn her back whenever he comes in with food or supplies. To him, it's a basic safety precaution. To Anna, it's an opportunity. With her back turned, Pascal can't see her hands clearly. He can't fully monitor what she might be reaching for or hiding. If she manages to loosen a piece of metal from the bed frame, break a shard of wood from a chair, or salvage something sharp from a tray or container, she could conceal it without him noticing. Each visit becomes a chance to acquire a tool, to test how closely he's watching, and to learn just how far she can push without raising suspicion. Anna's resourcefulness is legendary, and those instincts are starting to kick in. She may test the weight of objects in her room, study where Pascal places his keys, and memorize the exact timing between his visits. She could notice whether the door latch fully clicks when he enters, how slowly or quickly it shuts, and whether he ever gets distracted while talking. Maybe he occasionally checks his phone, glances back into the hallway, or shifts a tray with both hands, leaving himself momentarily vulnerable. These tiny lapses might seem insignificant to Pascal, but for Anna, they are the building blocks of a possible escape. At some point, the balance will shift from observation to action. Anna may decide that the time for gathering information is over and that she has to take a risk. The longer she stays locked away, the more likely Sidwell's ultimate plan will move forward. She knows she can't count on a rescue team magically bursting through the door, so she begins crafting her mental blueprint, where she will stand when Pascal arrives, what she will hide in her hand, how many steps it will take to reach him once the door opens. She will need to wait for the exact moment when his guard is at its lowest, perhaps when he bends down to pick something up or turns slightly to set the tray down. When that moment finally comes, Anna could strike with surgical precision, a blow to the back of the head using a makeshift weapon, or even a powerful strike with her fists or elbow if she gets close enough, might be enough to knock Pascal unconscious. Years of training and combat experience have taught her where to hit and how hard. If she succeeds, Pascal could collapse to the floor, stunned or completely out cold. This would be the first time in this entire ordeal that Anna regains physical control over her surroundings, and she will have to move fast before that window closes. With Pascal down, several possibilities open up in rapid succession. Anna might quickly search his pockets for keys, a phone, or a keycard. If he was careless enough to leave the door ajar behind him, something he might do once he becomes overly confident, she could slip right through, relying on speed over thoroughness. Alternatively, she might drag him just enough to prop the door with his body and keep it from fully closing. Every second will count, and she'll have to choose between securing a means of communication, mapping out the corridors, or simply running and trusting her instincts to guide her toward an exit. However, even if Anna manages to get out of the room, her ordeal may be far from over. Jen Sidwell is not the type to take chances when it comes to security. Spoon Island itself is remote and treacherous, and the building she's in is likely reinforced with multiple layers of locks, cameras, and possibly additional guards or automated systems. Anna could race down one hallway only to find another locked door, reinforced gate, or keypad access blocking her path. In that terrifying moment, the adrenaline that fueled her escape could turn into sheer frustration as she realizes she's moved from one cage to another. As she scrambles to find a way out, time will not be on her side. If Pascal regains consciousness, alarms could sound, backup might arrive, and Sidwell's entire operation could snap to high alert. Anna might find herself cornered, forced to duck into a side room, hide in the shadows, or attempt to mask the fact that she was ever free. She could try to bluff her way through if confronted by another guard, pretending Pascal let her out for some reason, but that would be a dangerous gamble. More likely, this escape attempt will expose her as far more defiant and capable than Sidwell and Pascal initially believed. If Anna is recaptured, the tone of her imprisonment could change dramatically. A once friendly, chatty Pascal might vanish, replaced by a harsher, colder version who no longer views her as a harmless subject but as a serious threat. Restraints might become tighter. Surveillance might increase. Sidwell might step in more directly with new psychological tactics or physical barriers designed to break her spirit. The kindness, however limited, that Anna experienced before could evaporate, showing her just how ruthless her enemies can be when challenged. Even so, no one in Port Charles and no GH viewer could blame Anna for trying to escape, even if the attempt fails spectacularly. She is not someone who accepts captivity as her fate. Every attempt, whether successful or not, will give her more data, how long it takes for guards to respond, which paths are blocked, which doors are connected, and where Sidwell might be operating from. Each failure could actually bring her closer to eventual success because it exposes the architecture of her prison and the psychology of her captors. As this storyline continues to unfold, Anna's struggle on Spoon Island is likely to grow even more intense. She may face new threats, more mind games, and higher stakes as Sidwell's plans move forward. But with every obstacle, Anna's resolve will harden. Fans can expect more twists, more close calls, and more clever strategies from a woman who refuses to be defined by her chains. General Hospital spoilers suggest that this is only the beginning of Anna's battle, and whatever escape plot she ultimately executes, whether now or later, will have massive ripple effects across Port Charles.